So let's go to the Netherlands where, just before we get to kind of the Netherlands, you remember the other day in Mexico, you had the Mexican president standing up to President Biden and saying what NATO and Biden are doing in Ukraine is immoral, right? What they're doing, this proxy war, funneling billions of dollars and weapons into that country is immoral, right? That's what Mexico said. I saw a lot of people in our comments on that video that said, it's about time that a Mexican president had balls, right? Well, maybe the same could be said of huevos rancheros. Maybe the same could be said of the Netherlands, where the prime minister, the Dutch prime minister, has come out and said that NATO, that NATO is using Ukraine as a proxy against Russia, calling it what it is, So Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte, am I saying that right to our Dutch viewers? Has called to equip Ukrainian forces with enough weapons and gear to defeat the Russian army and military, arguing that Kiev must deal the blows as a direct confrontation between NATO and Moscow is still off the table. Speaking to reporters after hosting a meeting with NATO Secretary Jens Stoltenberg and several European leaders on Tuesday, he said a Ukrainian victory may still be attainable if the U.S.-led military bloc provides sufficient lethal aid. In terms of weaponry, we stand united here. That is critical for Russia to lose the war, he said, suggesting that Ukraine should serve as a conduit for Western arms in order to maximize pain inflicted on Moscow. So he's basically saying exactly what we've been saying. It is a proxy. So he's letting the cat out of the bag, but much different than the way the Mexican president described it, right? The Mexican president said, we're using this as a proxy war and it's immoral. The Dutch prime minister saying quite the opposite, calling it a proxy war, but not quite having the same level of balls, I think, as the Mexican president. And just letting the cat out of the bag to say, yeah, this is exactly what we're doing. We're using NATO we're using Ukraine as a punching bag to further our ends.
Well, and Assad of Syria announced that he's going to start the official procedure for recognizing the Donetsk People's Republic in Ukraine. So,
yeah. Wait, I'm sorry. Who said that?
Assad.
Yeah.
So I mean, there are world leaders that aren't on board with what we're doing because they know what we've done in either their country or what we've done. Like we've done things all over the world, and some of these countries aren't going to go along. It's only the NATO ones that we give money to.
So the Dutch prime minister though basically saying we need to keep it a proxy. Okay, we need to keep it as a proxy. He says we cannot have a direct confrontation between NATO troops and Russia. What we need to do is make sure that Ukraine can fight that war, and basically we just need to funnel as many weapons as possible into Ukraine. The same thing, of course, comes from Stoltenberg, who said the alliance is stepping up to supply more arms to Kyiv, and Ukraine should have more heavy weapons. So they're going to have this Madrid summit here at Ukraine at the end of June. We're going to be watching that closely, where member states are going to be coming together to strengthen their posture. So NATO, again, NATO firming up its position to say we are not going anywhere. EU leaders flying in or taking the train into Kiev to say we are with you. We are going to provide more money, more weapons, and this is just an endless cycle. Unbelievable.
Well, if I can pop in real quick. So, it's kind of what I made the point like a couple of weeks ago, and David just referred to it. But it isn't necessarily semantics exactly that it's not really a proxy war, because one of the people that would be engaged in that proxy war is actually active combatants. So because it's Russia in Ukraine, and we're backing Ukraine, like we're using Ukraine as that proxy, but it's not necessarily a proxy war because Russia's actually there, which is the point where if we actually actively start taking place, it becomes just a war. So there's not that second degree of separation on Russia's side that there is on the US side. So that becomes problematic. And I think that's, like as much as we're funneling into this, the real danger then becomes the moment we put American troops officially in Ukraine, it stops being a proxy war and is now just a flat out war.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, I think that's where the American people, I don't know. I mean, you're seeing the tide turning in the United States, absolutely seeing this. I mean, how many people watching our show right now are okay with U.S. invasion of Ukraine to provide actual forces?
We did a poll.
Oh, yeah. What was the result of our poll here on the show?
And it was like close to 50,000 votes, and it was like 90% don't buy, that like aren't in favor of what's going on. And I just saw an article yesterday or the day before where they were trying to figure out how, like, where can we get Zelensky and to get the people, American people on board again? Like, they're trying to figure out ways that they can get Zelensky to keep talking to the American people, like at the NATO thing or whatever, this convention or whatever's coming up. They're just trying to figure out ways to get us on board because they know that they've lost a lot of us.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what propaganda, you know, I think the propaganda stories they've been trying, there's independent journalists there who've been covering these stories, and they've been, we can't get into it here because we'll be deplatformed, but there's been independent journalists who've been revealing the truth about what's been happening there. And that's been undercutting a lot of what's been happening in the media. And of course, that's where a lot of people get deplatformed for telling the truth in what's in Ukraine. So I don't know. I don't know where they could go propaganda-wise to kind of win back. Because you remember at the beginning, I mean, all of these people had like Ukrainian flags hanging on their front lawns. Everyone turned their Twitter bio into a Ukrainian flag. I think maybe that ship has sailed now. And it seems like the American attention is being more focused now on China and Taiwan anyway. So I don't know. We're going to start to hear a lot of like anti-China rhetoric, you know, and maybe that's where our attention will go next. It's going to move towards China. And of course, yeah, who else, you know, who else can we think of that we can turn our attention to? Thank you so much for subscribing to our channel. You know, we've been banned, we've been blocked, we've been censored. That's why we started our own website, to stay connected with you for free.
That's right. So head on over to redacted.inc and make sure you're connected with us. You can sign up again at redacted.inc, not .com.